What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 14 of On the 50. Today I had Tony Lymon on the show. He is from Petal, Mississippi. He's a designer at Petal Indoor Drumline. He's the creative designer at Pack Crest Drum and Bugle Corps. And he was a member of Star of Indiana from 91 to 93, amongst a bunch of superstars who went on in the activity to make serious changes and impacts on the activity. Today, Tony and I talked about a wide range of topics. We talked about the judging system. We talked about the method through which we vote in new rules. We talked about how to just make change in the activity, make it more inclusive, and make it just a better environment for really everyone involved. We talked about some of the realities of the activity, and it's a tough conversation to have. And it was very, very enlightening to talk to Tony as someone who has, been designing and working with a high school group, but also is involved with DCI Drum Corps, has March Drum Corps, and is just he's a very thoughtful person, and he had very insightful information and opinions on the activity. This was the first time I had the chance to really meet Tony and sit down and talk to him, but you can tell that, we gelled, and he is just a super smart guy. And I really enjoyed getting to know him through this medium. So I hope you guys all enjoyed as much as I did.
The mental health side of things is something that we are very dismissive about. And we also, because it's very hard to tie your success in with your personal worth and value, which is another part of, not being healthy. Well, we just didn't quite do it this year. The things that I thought were going to work we didn't do as well competitively. Thusly, I suck. It was my fault. I feel terrible about that I didn't offer them a competitive experience that was representative of what they were expecting. And man, I know a lot of people that fall in that trap, and I'm the leader of that group. And I had to take a step back and evaluate that for a while, that, the subjective waters that we swim in aren't going to always produce the competitive results that we want. And, you have to make it be about the experience of growth with your kids. But that's so hard to create the delineation between that.
Right. And I think two things that come up, and you said it, are burnout and turnover. And this is obviously a huge problem in our public education system. And it is probably a worse problem in drum corps, where you see so much turnover. We all know those conversations are happening late July, early August. Then by September 1, it's we fired our whole staff. Here's a new staff.
Yeah.
But that is such a problem to building a culture and consistency and eventually getting to excellence, is that a lot of these drum corps are looking for a quick fix. And it's the fix is to keep the same people on and to cultivate those people from a staff standpoint. And on the other side of that is burnout. And I think the burnout is likely embedded within this idea of turnover. Is one, we're all so in fear that we're going to get canned, that we're operating in this insanely stressed out way, where if we don't show the metrics at the end from a competitive standpoint, we're I'm fired, I'm getting fired. How many conversations I have with people who are I'm getting fired, we're all getting fired. It's it's colloquial at this point that we're just that we talk about firing and getting fired. And I think part of that is we have people working basically for free, 12-hour days, or working in indoor where you could never start early enough. You're not getting the results you want immediately enough. And then you're I just can't do this. I'm stressed out beyond the point that my health can kind of keep up with. But at the same time, I think a competing idea right now is this idea that we have to be hyper productive people in this world that we all live in. It's not just banned. It's like, and I've seen it so much during this quarantine where people are like, set a schedule, continue doing the things that you were doing, write in your journal, like this like stupid BuzzFeed Instagram personality thing where it's like, I'm a hyper productive person, like, and it's like, that is not real. And it's not totally authentic. And it's like, like productivity comes in waves. It comes in different peaks and valleys. And it's like these people, I think part of it is social media is just like, if you're not hyper productive, if you're not 25 hours a day, like you're just not working hard enough. And it's like, I can't lose more hair. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
I don't want to smoke cigarettes anymore because I'm stressed out. I don't want to make bad decisions for myself because I'm hanging on by a thread because the world around me is telling me I have to be hyper productive. And I think that is possibly amplified in our activity where we have this culture of hyper productivity or bust. You have a ton of turnover where it's like, firing an entire caption and bringing a new one is completely normal. And then you have burnout kind of underneath all of it where it's like, I'm afraid because I'm working as hard as I can. I'm afraid I'm going to get fired because this is just a part of the culture. And like, there's not more that I can do. It's like not even about substance anymore. It's just about like the amount I can keep doing. I'm going to just do more. I'm going to teach every block. I'm going to just always be out there. And it's like, is this at all good for the students that we're trying to teach, that we're so stressed out that we are sick? I mean, and this is what the activity is at times telling us we need to do and be. And I think that all of that kind of is wrapped together in a sort of a very complicated system. I don't know that I can put an origin or a terminal point to it, but it's certainly not about individuals doing good work. It's just about this like need to I need to appear like I'm doing the most.
Right. And because that's what we teach, we teach that in the pageantry idiom is like, you got to be productive every moment of the day. Like you eat your cereal on your drum on the way to, I'm still disturbed by this, even in my own group. It's like, we give them time off. First, we'll do 9 to 9. And then it's like, okay, well, you can't get this part. So during your lunch break, you need to go hack through it. It's like, well, we're only giving them an hour to go eat. And then we want to take a portion of that for them to go hack on a part that we're going to spend another 4 hours on, which we already took their entire Saturday to be with friends and family. And that's important. And then they already, are doing it 3 nights a week for 3 hours just to barely hang in there, So it's like, what are we teaching them? Like, what is the end of that? What are we working towards? I know for me, I had gotten unhealthy, trying to just keep being productive. Man, I had gained probably 200 more pounds than I should weigh. And luckily I said enough and I was able to lose the weight. And, I had to take a look at all the things that I was doing in my life and seeing which of these things and prioritize. And I'm doing this at age 40, and so I had to make myself mentally, physically, financially healthy. And I'm still in the process of it. I mean, it took the better part of 4 or 5 years to undo an entire career of following that ideology that could have quite possibly been to a grave end, because we're taught to put ourselves last. We're taught, leaders eat last, which I'm totally on board with, but that can spill over into your mentality of, and I used to hear in the early 90s, you can sleep when you're dead. Well, I don't want that to be sooner than later.
Right.
And that's what it felt like I was pushing toward. And so, man, that I feel like that needs to be talked about out in the open, because I feel like there are a lot of people in our activity that aren't healthy. They may look healthy on the outside, but they aren't healthy on the inside.
Right. Right. And It's cultural too. I mean, this whole thing comes from this like grind mindset where we're going to do the most with the least that we have, and it's almost like a hype, you know what I mean? It's a hype to like push yourself that far. And like I gained a lot by, doing a full tour, and what you gain from like a mental acuity standpoint certainly is there. But look how professional athletes are being treated. You know what I mean? Like, okay, for example, like I really like MMA. Like this last year, I like started getting more into MMA. My friend Joe DeLosa, who is on staff at Crown and Mason, like got me into it. And I think it's really cool. And something I really like about it, like, yeah, they're getting beat up, but they're not even allowed to fight again until a doctor says they can. Like they are treated in a quite professional way. They're seen, they are, and this probably isn't the same for all sports. I know like people are put out there prematurely with injuries, and it makes the injury worse and lasts longer. But it's almost like we have this expectation that the harder you get beat, like the better it's going to be or whatever. And I'll say like, I mean, you marched a very different drum corps than the one I did. And I know, stories from Star 93 that Tom Hannum was like, that wasn't the right thing to do. But at the time that was the norm. And, I marched Cavaliers in 2010 and 2011, and we're getting 10-minute water breaks for every 50 minutes of rehearsal. We're getting at least an hour and a half breaks. We have Gatorade and water at every block. We're being fed with like a very specific nutritional plan. At spring training, we're not getting enough sleep, but essentially we're like getting a very calculated amount of sleep on the road. And I felt great. I did not feel like I was at my wit's edge for much of that. There were definitely times, I think there are and can be constructive moments where you're like, I'm at a point where I don't think I can move my legs anymore. Like you're just beat up. And then once you're coached through that, you're like, I've gained something and I've strengthened my armor. And like, there is something to that, but for that to be the default, like mechanism of how to operate, I think is totally outdated. And honestly, like we're doing the amazing things we do now because we are waking up to the idea that we should be treating our students like all-star athletes that they are, and they will thank us for it. Yeah. They'll perform better. They'll show up more awake. They'll be more attuned to the information we're getting them. It's like, you're going to give the students like 2 hours of floor time and then get them out to a block in the morning and they're falling asleep. You're like, guys, like, what is this? It's like, you did that. Those ticks are your ticks. They're not the students' ticks. The students are doing exactly what you're training them to do. And if that's bad, that's on you. If they're tired, they're tired. And, I certainly didn't always fully subscribe to that. I definitely like personally, I can function in a little bit of a masochistic environment where I'm getting beat up because I just like that personally. I like to like go through a little bit of like physical, mental pain to grow. Right. I think there is something to that, but like, that's just me. That's not everyone. And I can't just like take this umbrella approach and be like, every student should like get their ass kicked as much as I think they should, because that's what I believe and that's going to work. It's like, why are they paying $5,000 to go on tour to do that when they could just not? Like, that's not really what the whole point of it is, right?
Yeah, that was very well stated, because it essentially is going to come down to that. Like, there's going to be a binary choice. Was this experience positive enough for me to do it again? Yes or no? It's going to come down to that.
Right.
And I think every instructor, every administrator, every technician, every designer needs to keep that at the front of their minds. Am I creating an experience, an environment that if I gave them a Scantron with a yes or no on it, would they circle yes?
Right.
And I think that should guide everything that you do, period.
Right. Yeah. And we get in desperate situations. Again, this is like that perpetual issue is the groups that aren't competing at the highest level, that aren't doing as well as they want to do, or the groups that are going to try to find more hours to rehearse. They're going to try to squeeze more out of the hours they're rehearsing. Then the students are going to be more tired. The students are going to have a negative experience. Then they're not going to come back. Now you have no vet retention and you have no consistency. Guess where that's going to land you? In a situation where you're not competing. You're going to squeeze more out of them. You're going to beat them up more. Keep going. Rather than like, you know what? Like, we need to change the culture of this drum corps. And in the short term, it might hurt us, but 5 years down the road, we're going to have students come back because they know they're being taken care of and that they're being accounted for by the adults in the room, rather than like, we just need to get as much done. We need to do as many reps as possible. Like you look at the top groups. I would guess that those top groups in DCI are the ones treating the students the best, and they probably rehearse less hours than some of the groups you see in that, like, I don't know, 8 through 12 range. I guarantee there are lower placing cores that are rehearsing more hours. How can that possibly be? Well, this is what we're talking about, because at the Blue Devils, you know you're going to be treated like a professional athlete, so they're getting the top talent, and everyone's going to come back. I bet Blue Devils turnover rate, or rather even Blue Devils like losing students to other cores, it must be like 1%. It has to be so low.
Well, look at their staff. Those guys have been there. Their people on the staff have been there since the 90s.
Yes.
You know, I mean, that speaks volumes, and their success rate and success model speaks volumes. I mean, you can say what you want. I mean, Scojo's been in front of that line for like, and like he's in there. You know, it's not like he phones it in or he's like down in the dirt, because it's an organic. This is just my perception. I've never spent any time around the Blue Devils. This is completely observational, but it seems like it's an organic family that draws people who see that kind of positivity and just want to be a part of it. Right. And you just wind up getting the best people because they know what to expect. If this guy's been there that long, it must mean that, and people that I know and it's been their entire lives there. I mean, give me some of that.
Right. And just look at the eyes of the performers, man. It's like, if you watch that drum line in the lot, they feel good. Their cheeks they're not sunken. They're not beat up. They don't look sunburnt to the point that they're withering away. Like, they look healthy. They look fed. They are being treated in a way that is respectful. They're still being coached. I think there's still an element of the coaching, but there's this expectation of, we're going to treat you right. You're going to bring your best, and we're all going to feel good about it. And there's tremendous success. There's so much success when that is like the bottom line is mutual respect. And, I know like that's unusual to have someone like Scott Johnson who, has his own RV and is, really base his life around the drum corps, but they've clearly made it worth it to him. And the outcome is evident. It's an evident outcome that it's positive, and not every drum corps is equipped to do that. But I do think every drum corps is equipped not to behave in a way that is honestly just like reactive and fearful. It's like, if you're in camp number 1, audition number 1, sitting there going like, is this comment going to get me fired? If this doesn't get the outcome that I want in August of the end of this year, am I going to get fired? Like, this fear. So there's also been this, like, the trust from the organization that we're here to make a commitment to you. If you fail, we're going to help coach you through that. We're going to because no one realizes, like, when you're on staff, you're still being educated. Someone's educating you, whether it's your manager, your caption supervisor, your director, your core director, the administration. If they're doing it right, they are coaching you too. And there has to be this inward look at like how we're operating, because we know the groups that are successful are groups that are invested in the personnel. They're not just like, well, we're this group and whoever comes through us is going to be successful. It's like, no, like you need to take a person or a team or a caption or whatever, and you need to like guide them through to the point that you feel like you can't anymore. And either that's going to be good or bad, but so frequently it is such a norm and activity where like, oh, fire the whole caption, you're gone. You got this placement, your sub caption. It's like, what?
Yeah, I still haven't understood that. Because I mean, and I got to take a look at it for the first time this past year, at the amount of conversations that I had behind the scenes during finals week. And you would think that finals week is the celebration of all your hard work and you're just about to go in there. But what I got to see behind the scenes was a mad scramble of, okay, we know we're getting rid of these people, and we're trying to find out who's getting rid of those people and trying to recruit those people to be with our people. And then, finals happens. Then it's like, fight. All right, let's go. This is a mad scramble. I got to get this guy. Call this guy. And, got two phones to your ears, and then it's like you got a couple of days to decide who your staff is going to be for the entire year, because they may be taken up somewhere else. Somebody else might get them. And that to me is the strangest thing I can think of. Like, you're going to choose who are the stewards of your entire organization in minutes or days. Instead, the thinking to me is that whoever Mr. or Mrs. Drum Corps is would take that staff and go, hey guys, this is what we plan to do. This was the instrument that we put together to get there. We didn't achieve the results that we wanted to do. Let's go back and look at the instrument. Let's see how we can improve that. Let's see what didn't quite fit. And I feel like a few years of doing that is where the results will come from, instead of, we didn't get it, clean house. Because now you got a faculty that is operating under fear, and I've never seen good results of that. And there may have been good results, and I don't claim to have seen everything, but all the experiences I've been in where I personally have operated under fear, it's never been a great outcome.
Right. And how do you expect vet retention when you've canned the whole caption? It appears a certain way, and it makes the whole organization seem like, well, what's in the best interest of the students? If this is a youth nonprofit activity, then the decisions that we're making should be oriented towards the students being able to come back to a culture that's reliable and that supports them, not necessarily the guarantee of a placement, or that you're going to bring in some big name and that's going to make a huge change. And we've seen in the past couple of years, I think there's been some really some precedents set by, teams buying up some like really strong names, expecting that those teams to bring the core to like a first place finish in the first year. And that's really not at all what's happened. And, you've also seen groups give like 3-year contracts out, which I don't know that is like the perfect thing. Like, we're going to officially give you a 3-year contract, but I do really like the idea of like, you have at least 3 years to like prove yourself good or bad. I think that is these are year-to-year contracts. And in a way, like, the fear is embedded into that very system, because it's like, I've been at groups where I didn't even sign a contract. I've been at groups where I didn't know what I was getting paid. And it's like, no, money isn't the primary incentive to why I do this. But you know what? Like, I need to feel valued in some way. If I don't feel valued philosophically, if I don't feel valued and supported organizationally, and then if I don't feel valued financially, it's like, how am I going to show up every day my best? Like, we aren't robots. We're already experiencing burnout. We're in fear of the turnover that's kind of just embedded in the activity. It's like, what are the incentives for us to show up and be positive role models? That doesn't seem like it's oriented towards the students having a positive experience. It seems like trying to wedge your drum corps into a competitive spot. And it's really a backwards way of doing that. Anyone that has taught would know that the way to have success is to have a good experience from the beginning, and to have consistency and reliability, and to have those people like Scott Johnson who have been around for so long that they know that they're being supported and that the rug's not going to get pulled out from under them.
Right. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about value. At the end of the day, everybody wants to be valued, and a valued person, whether they be from the core director down to the metronome technician
Right.
with a makeshift artist, Karen, if they feel valued, they're going to do their best job. And that's a sliding scale. The input to output is pretty much predicated upon how valued they feel. I'm going to go back to my psychology class from college, and please, psychologists, don't judge me on this. I'm trying to remember it. But there's an equation in psychology that says the amount of effort you put into something is directly related to the amount of benefit you think you're going to get from it. And if you're not valued, If you feel devalued, then you're going to give devalued effort.
Right. No surprise there, right? No surprise at all. And for some reason we lose sight of that because we put our eye on the prize and we put our eye on these sort of like, I think people that feel like the celebrities in our activity, these like sort of staple brand names. And those people have put in a ton of work, but there is a 1% in our activity. There's no question. There's a very, very small population of people that are making all the money. And there is a huge population of people that are struggling to get by. Right. And I get scared about this activity when I see one arranger writing for multiple groups in the same class. I get scared when there are these like label designers on multiple groups and the group is succeeding. And it's like, well, you know, that's great for the person that is making commission off the show. And in the short term, it might be really good for your group to like get some recognition, but you haven't invested yourself in the process of learning actually how to do it. And I think there has been a like economical shift in terms of like monopolizing the competitive atmosphere where it's like, yeah, we have our top 5 people who are going to like design the shows that are good and they're going to sell shows and they're going to teach and really not even teach, but, you know, from a satellite location, send in their design. And that group may prosper, but it's like, we're not giving more people the chance to experiment and to do their thing and put their thing out there. And I have a problem with that. You know what I mean? Like I understand that this is a capitalist world we live in, but why are we constantly like trying to like we put a mask on it like education and it's about the members and man, like I just don't think that people actually operate with that at the forefront of what they do because they're trying to make money and make payments on their homes and feed their own kids and all that stuff. And it's like, am I supposed to fault someone because they want to be economically successful? Well, on one hand, no, but it's like, again, like, shouldn't there be a cap to this? I mean, it's like this idea, like how many billions of dollars do you need sitting in the bank when a fraction of that would end homelessness in America? Like I refuse to believe that is good for the masses. Okay, Jeff Bezos creates a lot of jobs at Amazon. I think that in a way is really great. And I certainly love Amazon, but he doesn't need all that money sitting in his bank. If he and he like makes these donations and the second he does it, people are like, yeah, this is 0.00002 of his like yearly net worth. It's like, this is just a facade to make yourself feel better versus like, you know what, I'm going to have my group and I'm going to have my commitment. And then, but it's like, does everyone just deserve to like fight? Like we're just scrambling and fighting for the very little amount of money that's out there.
Right. So what's the fix? What's the yeah, I hate to put that on you. Whenever I talk about these things, and I'm actually, you know, with everything that's going on today, especially with, you know, with George Floyd and you know, I have kind of taken on a leadership role in my community with like a lot of people. We have a lot of people's hearts and a lot of people's minds, but I gravitate towards, okay, we've got the attention. What's the next step of it? Like how do we take this fire and turn it into action that actually changes things? Like, what do we do in the activity to make people aware of it, or to what's the next step?
We speak out. We can't be in fear. I think that I think we're afraid. We're talking about the advisory board meetings. I had an interaction just today. You know, today's the 7th, I believe. Interaction today where it's like, shut up. You don't know. Here are the people that knows. Sit down. Yeah. We're the elite class and you're not. And I think we can't be afraid of like getting kind of, I don't know, like canceled or dismantled because someone who has been doing this for so long doesn't want things to change. Of course, the people upholding the status quo want the status quo to remain what it is, because once it changes, they're going to be very uncomfortable, much like we're experiencing culturally in America right now. It's super uncomfortable for a lot of people, but you know what? It's been more uncomfortable for more people up to this point. Exactly. You know, it's been much more uncomfortable. And now it's like, wait a second, I have to like kind of confront that. It's like, what about everyone out there that's been living like this for so long? So I think one is like, let's stop being so afraid of like speaking out and even saying like, I made a mistake or I didn't know everything, but I'm open to learning. I think that is huge. I think it's huge that we just go like, I didn't know this, but now I do. And that doesn't mean that I'm like less of a good person or that I'm like the devil. And we can't be thinking in a binary way about that. Like people, and that's a flip side of the coin is like, if someone says or does one thing, do we just cancel them? Do we just say you're dead to me? Like that's not going to help us grow as people. So I also think like we need to be able to forgive each other. We need to be able to like be open to the possibility of our own failures and misgivings and shortcomings and go like, I didn't know, but I want to know more. I want to learn. And I think for our activity, it's going to be big for us to not be afraid to speak out because we're afraid of just getting buried by people who are like, this is how it is and shut up. You don't really know. So I think that would be one step, I would say. And I don't know. What do you think?
I haven't, from the instruction and design side of things, I haven't been in that arena of DCI long enough to know the landscape of it all. I have been in WGI for a good bit. And I feel like of the three, BOA, WGI, and DCI, I feel like WGI has a more accessible forum for being able to enact changes. I think of all the things that we talked about today, I feel like there's a way, or they are of those people who are in probably the more elite class or have more to say. I think they're a lot more approachable in that arena. It's like, hey man, this is something I'm thinking. Let's talk. I feel a lot more comfortable with that. And it may just be I'm more familiar with it. But yeah, I think creating the environment of hearing the voices of the unheard, like people who, I think there's value in everybody's perspective, especially in our activity. Because if it's only just the top people being rewarded for anything, then just for sheer logistics, there has to be someone to compete against. You know what I mean? I hate to sound that rudimentary about it, but there has to be an activity to be competitive. And if there isn't a spectrum of people in it, then there's really nothing. And I feel like there's value in the drumline battle group that comes out there that just wants to be a part of it all. And there's value in the group that's contending for a gold medal. I think that all of that is in there. And because it's an educational activity that changes people's lives, obviously, you and I are from two different eras of it changing our lives, but we're still speaking the same language right now.
Right.
We're still talking about very similar experiences and things that have, made us who we are. So as much as the activity is predicated upon one-upping itself, I feel like it's not as committed to refining itself in those avenues that we spoke about today. And I think step one is just taking pause and recognizing and identifying it. With every 12-step program you go through, the first step is admitting you have a problem. And I think if there were a 12-step program in the marching activity, that would be the hardest one. Admitting that there is a problem and that we have a problem. I think that's hard to do because it involves humbling yourselves and not being the guy or girl that you may want to portray and say, this isn't right. We need to come back and look at it. And what we've seen in the activity is that a lot of those things have reached a point where outside forces have pointed those things out to us. And that's totally where you don't want to be, is where you don't have control over who's pointing those things out to you, because then it's only how those people have perceived what it is you have done, the action or inaction therein, and then you're completely out of control, and then all eyes are on you. It's like, well, if you knew this was a problem, then why didn't you do anything, type of thing. So I think it's just that step one. And wow, what a journey we've gone on from, hey, how you doing?
Yeah, we have admitted there's a problem. The next podcast we do is going to be step 2. I don't know what step 2 is though.
Yeah, but I do think, and just to pull it all the way back, that I don't know of one single thing in my entire life that has shaped me the way the pageantry arts has done, and how it's given me a conduit to take my own life struggles that I had when I was my students' age and be able to help them move forward, to do things that they never thought they would be able to do. And that, I know at Petal High School that's our mission. And my mission with them is exponential growth. I want you to be able to get into this and unite under a common goal. Something is way bigger than we are. This goal that we have is way bigger than we are, and not let where we're from determine where we go, and just determine how much we're willing to sacrifice to get there and get to work. That has been our mission. And when they're done with this, whether we met our goals or not, when they get on the other side of this thing, I want them to be able to have a working business model to where they can engineer their own success as adults. They can get out there and do the thing and just get it done. That's my goal with it all. And I don't know if there are any other activities that I have seen where you can have that kind of success. I mean, I've watched sports models, I've watched dance, and those are all great things. But there just seems to be something unique about the pageantry arts that you're able to do that in a way that no other thing can do it.
I agree. I really do. And I am interested to continue figuring out what is so special about that, and why I find myself, half of my life has been nonstop involved in this activity. I started marching when I was 14 years old, and I have not stepped away for a full season up to this point, so there is something there. And, we've been very analytical and maybe critical of the activity, but at the same time, this is all out of a love for it and a desire to continue growing it and making it more accessible to more people and to make it better. So I think we can end on that positive note, that we are both huge supporters of the activity, the directors, judges, instructors, fans, members, and this is all for the love of it and growing it. So Tony, this has been honestly like just an amazing time talking to you, man. And I would love to have you on again and just keep going down the rabbit hole, because your insight is valuable.
Sure thing, man. I appreciate it. I think it's a conversation that needs to be had, and I think a lot of people are having this conversation, maybe not so much out in the open or in such a ignominious fashion as we're doing right here, but it's definitely important to protect and grow the thing that we love and that shaped all of us.
I agreed. I hope this platform will give people, more bravery to have those conversations, so we don't feel like there's only this this thing I can talk about, and there's this ceiling to which I can expose what's really going on and understand it's from a place of love and not a place of wanting to tear it down and shred everything and pull everything apart. It's out of a desire to make it better and to heal what's going on. And I think that having these conversations in a way that they will be heard and they will be publicized, it needs to happen. And I am happy to be at least one person to try to put those conversations out there.
Exactly.